Welcome to the Writer Showcase podcast. I'm Phil Nasons, and I'm the host of this podcast, brought to you by the authors and you, the listening public. You won't hear any commercials or advertisements because this podcast is funded by the writers who actually appear on the show to promote their books, and by you, the listening audience. If you would like to be a guest on the show or would like to support the work being done, please contact me at thewritershow.wordpress.com. That's thewritershow.wordpress.com. Tonight I'll be joined by my friend Mary Ann Bernal. She is a historical fiction writer. She's also a big supporter of my daily radio show. I probably couldn't do it without her and her help, and I'm very appreciative of that. But that doesn't mean she doesn't have to pay to be on this show. Anyway, please welcome my friend Mary Ann Bernal is on the podcast. How are you?
I'm fine, Phil. How are you doing? Thanks for that great info. And yes, I do get some great visitors coming to my page to listen to your show. So keep up the good work. We love your programs.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. But we're not here to talk about my programs. I think I talk about them enough, actually. But what we hear about, and folks, Mary Ann's been here a couple of times already, but she's written a historical fiction, I guess we might as well call it what it is, a franchise.
Correct. That's it.
5 books. Let me see if I can get them off the top of my head. See if the fever doesn't get in my way here.
Okay, go for it.
The Briton and the Dane timeline.
That's the latest one coming up.
Yep. The Briton and the Dane Concordia.
Correct.
The Briton and the Dane trilogy.
Correct.
And that's it.
Now we'll name the 3 books in the trilogy.
Oh, now that's that. You got me there.
Okay.
we'll do that. We'll do that in a minute here, but you got me there.
Okay. But
I just call it trilogy.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. I'll give you an A for effort.
Yeah, I can barely see the page here, but it's all good. It's all good. The Briton and the Dane timeline is your latest release. Now, why timeline? How does that fit in with the franchise?
Okay. What I decided to do initially with the very first title, it was always supposed to be Gwyneth and Eric's story. And what happened was all of a sudden all these secondary characters were, demanding more screen time. And I ended up with all these different subplots and everybody wanted their story told. And even though I kept Gwyneth and Eric, in the mainstream, flowing through the story, it was very apparent that there was no way I was going to be able to do this in one book. And then one book became 2. The second book in the series is Birthright, and then Legacy finishes it off. So they do run through the whole, 3 books, but it was never dedicated to them. So what I decided to do, I really felt bad on that. So I said, okay, we're going to give Gwyneth and Eric their own story. But a lot of it was covered in the trilogy. And what kind of new material could I do here? So then I decided, well, what if Gwyneth is a modern young lady and she gets zapped back in time and meets Eric? And now we do have Gwyneth and Eric, their story, but we're set in a different time period. We're going to fast forward 200 years, and I'm going to be in England before the Norman invasion. And we have a storyline running through. And what you see in this book, which is different from my other stories, you get a lot of current information in there when Gwyneth, she'll talk back, oh, I wish I had my camera because this would be a beautiful picture to take, and so on and so forth. And then I will do comparisons. Oh, this street reminds me of the bakery on High Street, or I wonder if Robin Hood's sap tree is his big oak is a sapling. Or where is it? Because, in her time period, the tree is, in 2066, it's a big old oak that, visitors, when they go to Nottingham and Robin Hood Country, they go visit. So I make little, back and forth references there. And I start out in 2066, and we're talking about her because she's a professor, and she's, does archaeological digs and so on. So that's how the storyline develops. And then we have to, she's transported back. I want you to read the book. So I'm not going to give away all the little secrets, but she just suffice it to say she gets back there, and then their life goes on. And the reason that she is there is Eric's line dies out unless she can do something about it. So what is she going to do? And basically, that's the whole story. And then does she get back into, does she come back to time, or does she end up dying in 1066?
Okay, you basically breezed through all my questions already, and that'll be the end of this podcast.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It happens. You know what?
Listen, I'm from New York. We talk fast. You know that.
Yeah, I learned not to. I've been in Greece too long. But
I'm sorry.
no,
Uh,
no, what are you sorry about? It's okay. Now let's backtrack a little bit here.
okay.
Since I got past page two here, um, this book is dedicated to fallen U.S. soldiers.
Yes.
Now, I'm a big supporter of the armed forces. I
Yes.
have my daily show on Armed Forces Radio, and I'll
Right.
plug it again. It's the only daily show on Armed Forces Radio.
Right. Thank you for doing that because our armed forces really appreciate your support.
I'll tell you what, they listen to the sports show like crazy. They write to me. It's amazing, and they're great people. But you dedicated your book to some fallen soldiers, and then
Mhm.
you generalized that you were specific about the couple soldiers, and then you generalized it to all of our soldiers, all of our service men and women stationed all around the globe. Now, why is that so important to you?
Because freedom is not free, and the general public tends to forget that. You can't take for granted our freedoms without a cost, and people don't realize, if it's not forefront in their minds, like say during World War II, where we were fighting for our freedom, and yes, so everybody was supporting the troops per se because this was a major big world war and everybody was involved. But there's still wars that go on. They're not to that extent. They're smaller wars, but our servicemen still serve. They still get deployed. They still die. They still get injured. They still get wounded. There's all this stuff going on that the general public seems to forget because it doesn't make a headline news. And then you have the plight of the military family. These people, they don't know what's going on when their loved ones are deployed, and it's a very stressful period in time, and they really need all the support that our country can give them. And it's not just our country; it's also the UK, France, Germany, any place that has the military supporting the country and keeping everybody safe. And it's a big job, and people shouldn't take these people for granted. And I don't want anybody to forget that.
And that's very important. There's nothing stronger than the heart of a volunteer.
Right.
And that's what, and we're talking about the United States Armed Forces here. I don't know anything about any of the other ones. I meet some of them because they come to the resort in Corfu on their way to Afghanistan or wherever they're being deployed next, or
Right.
on their way out.
Right.
But anyhow, yeah, it's important, and I think it's great that you did that.
Thank
Now,
you.
you mentioned some of the timeline characters,
Hmm.
and that they're found in some of these in the other books within the franchise.
No, not in Timeline, because Timeline we're 200 years after the trilogy is finished.
So
Okay,
these are
so
all new people.
these are all new people, and it's Gwyneth and Eric, but it's not the same Gwyneth and Eric from the original, The Briton and the Dane.
Oh, okay. Maybe
Okay,
I should have read more than 4 pages. But
that's okay.
anyhow, I just stopped at the dedication. I thought that was enough for me. That was good enough.
Okay,
I would have
okay,
bought it just because of that. But
okay.
honestly, so the one thing that I wanted to ask you though is that you start the book in 2066,
Hmm.
but the timeline obviously is 1066, right?
We're going back in time.
Right. So
So
you're
there.
going backwards. This is a departure from the other books that you've written. Why did you decide to do that?
Because I wanted to take an original a look onto the story. I didn't want to stay back in Alfred the Great's time because the complete trilogy plus Concordia were still in the reign of Alfred the Great in the ninth century, and I wanted to bring in some new historical material. And I do like, the William the Conqueror story, and there's a lot of good material there because Edward is going to die without issue, and oh my gosh, now we're contending for the throne. So you got a lot of good plotting in there and treachery and so on. Like, we have the Norwegian threat, and then you have, William the Bastard, and everybody wants that throne. So there's all kinds of, subterfuge and everything going on there, and it's a good storyline to throw in some characters and see, is the good guy going to win? And then that's another thing too, which I really like. Gwyneth knows the history because she's read it, she teaches it and so on, so she knows what's going to happen. And here's your Star Trek dilemma coming in there. How much do you tell? And what do you do? Do not interfere with the timeline, because then the paradox is, you're going to go back in time to meet your grandfather, and or you can go back in time and kill your grandfather or whatever, and then you're never born, and then that messes up the whole timeline. And I just love the Star Trek paradoxes, and that was in the back of my mind when I wrote this story for the timeline.
That sounds great. Now, if there were three things that you would want the listener to know about this book, what would they be?
Okay, this one is it's modern, contemporary stuff interwoven with historical stuff. So the reader's going back and forth. So if it's to get a new audience in there, to get them interested in history, where you have some modern stuff going on, and then you have the historical stuff. So to try and get them to get a love for history, whether they're into Anglo-Saxon Wessex, or medieval England or France or whatever, just to get an interest in history. Because if people really listen to what happened in history and try to learn from it, maybe our country would be in a better place, and half of these wars would stop.
It's very good, and I think you should get out and get this book, folks. Now, when will it be available? Is it available now, or is it available in a couple of days?
It's going to be available within a fortnight, which is 2 weeks. I'm just waiting on the proof. As soon as I approve that, it'll be available. I'm looking at maybe, I don't know when this is going to air, but within it'll be out by, I would say, January 25, 26, somewhere in there.
So to be safe, look for it around the 1st of February, right?
Yeah, but it should be soon. And of course, all links and everything will be on my webpage. And I'll post that information on Pinterest and my blog and Twitter and Facebook and Google Plus. So all the information will be out there.
And your website is maryannbernal.com, right?
Correct. And everything is there on that website.
It is. In fact,
Yes.
you know what? And I'm going to kind of go off on a rabbit trail here for a minute.
Okay.
But that's one of my pet peeves is authors who don't even have a website of their own. I mean, Facebook isn't a website.
No.
And,
No.
how can I research you? I get a lot of requests,
Uh-huh.
and they tell me how many books they've sold and blah, 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 and all this nonsense. And yet they don't even have their own webpage. And that's important, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's very important, because if somebody's going to type in your name, they have to be able to find you. And if you type in my name, the very first entry is maryanbernal.com, the official webpage of author Mary Ann Bernal, author of the Briton and the Dane series.
That's
And
important. Yeah, absolutely. They
very,
do that with me too, unfortunately. But I
so,
try
and,
not to be found.
but the best thing is if you can do, because some people can, to make sure that your name is available, because there's more than one Mary Ann Bernal out there. I found that out when so just like I'm sure there's another Phil Nason's out there somewhere, so if the name is taken, then you got to come up with an alternate. But fortunately, Mary Ann Bernal was available, so I, went with, because that's what you want. People are going to remember Mary Ann Bernal, and I didn't want to go with the Briton and the Dane, because I do also write other stuff. I do short stories, and that's all contemporary work. And so I'm a writer. I'm not, the Briton and the Dane. That's part of me, but it's not all of my work. So it's very important just to have my name. And then you find everything else. And if you go on my webpage, I have a tab for everything. I have all links. So you click on a link, you can become a fan. You can join me on Pinterest. You can, the blog, all those links are there. I have separate tabs for my short stories, separate tabs for my novels, separate tabs for my book trailers. I have also I'm going to jump ahead, and we'll talk about this later. But I have a separate tab for my film project, which I will discuss when we finish this part of it, and also background information. I have a references tab where you can print off a character list, maps. I have a glossary that's also you can print off, and then I also have discussion questions. If anybody's in a book club and they want some questions about what to discuss about the book, I have discussion questions for all my work too.
So everything that you do is on your site.
Right.
Yeah, mine
Right.
too, except for the WordPress stuff, but that's for my iTunes feed. But I have everything in one place too, because I freelance, right? And I have a
Hmm.
page with all the fresh links, and I can just send anyone who I'm pitching to that page. There it all is right there. All
That's
my
right.
stuff here, here, and here. It's updated. I have all my video stuff. Obviously, I have my shows up there. But it's
Right.
important to have all that there because in this world where they're so easy to publish and it's
Hmm.
so difficult to pitch, you
Hmm.
know, a publisher isn't going to go on a hunt and peck search.
No, no.
They don't do
And
that.
And then I also have a tab in there called In the News where I upload a link plus a PDF copy of every interview or program that I'm on, like this one. That you will be listed there when I get all the information. It'll be in the news, and that's archived because So if anybody wants to know, well, what have you done in the last 3 years? Well, go to In the News. It's all archived. It's all there because everything that any of my appearances or anything I post. And what I do is, with Adobe Acrobat, you can make a PDF from a web page URL. And that's what I do because sometimes if somebody does have a URL there, and if it's not archived, well, then you lose the interview, but not if you have the PDF attached to the post, which is what I do.
And that's exactly the way it should be. That way, when we look for things, we can find them. And we
That's
don't
right.
have to pester people and write 100 emails.
That's right. So I'm very organized in case you didn't notice.
Yeah, I am too, and for the most part, I just can't figure out how to get the RSS feed on my philnasons.com site. I'm not that technologically savvy when it comes to that stuff, and that's why I
Okay.
have those iTunes WordPress sites, because that's
Hmm.
all those are. That's all they are. You know that.
That's right.
We know each other a long time. That's the only thing I use it for. But anyhow, we chased down that rabbit, and that was
Okay.
good. Now the Briton and the Dane Concordia,
Hmm.
if I'm not mistaken, that made I've put out a top 10 list of books for
Yes.
2013, and I
Yes.
believe that made number three.
Yes, you did. I'm so happy you love that story. And
Yeah,
I'm
that's the one I read from cover to cover in one night during a power outage.
That's right. That's right. And you also said that I blew you away with the ending, which we can't reveal because it'll spoil it. But I'm so delighted that I did that because that was the goal. I didn't want you to see anything coming.
And I didn't, and it was
Yeah,
fantastic.
thank
But
you.
now the thing is, and that's part of this series too, although it's a standalone and it's
Right.
not part of the trilogy,
Right.
it could
Right.
easily be incorporated because some of those characters are actually in the trilogy series, right?
That's correct, because what happens is Concordia is of age in her book, of course, but she's 3 years old when the trilogy ends. So again, and this her story takes place the year before Alfred the Great dies, and he dies in 899. So, and what's different with this? Okay, we do have we do reference, but I don't go into too much detail with because this is her story now, and I did not permit any other the characters to have their own stories because I was not going to do another trilogy with Concordia. She wanted her own story. She was very demanding in my head, and we just went for it, and everybody else got, pushed aside. But there are minor references to, characters from the trilogy. Some of the children were grown up, of course, and, some of the other characters are referenced, but generally just the characters that were in her lineage. So there's still ample material for me that I can carry stories about, like what happened to David after the trilogy ends. That's one of Gwyneth's brothers, and then Stephen, of course, is referenced in Concordia because Stephen is the father. So his storyline gets told in there. But there's tons of stories that can be told, just like in the Star Wars franchise. After George Lucas finished it, there's a lot of authors out there that write little subplot stories. And there's like what happens to Princess Leia, and she marries Han, and they have the kids. And if you go to the sci-fi section, there's the Star Wars, there's the original, story, the 6 stories there, but then you have all these other titles about Han running, across the universe and so on and so forth. So technically, it's the same thing that's is going to happen with this franchise. So that's my long range goal.
Yeah, because it seems to me that you could slide Concordia into the time or into the trilogy just as easily as you could take her out and keep it as a standalone.
That's right.
And then
That's
spin off from that too, if you really wanted to. I suppose you could,
right.
because there's
So
the ending and the people who were left, that they would make interesting stories too, I suppose.
that's
But
right.
but if you wanted people to know 3 things about Concordia in that book, what would those be?
Okay, well, this is a coming of age, so therefore, and this is what's interesting. Just because it's, back in the ninth century, does that mean that her emotions and what she has to deal with is any different than what happens with kids today? And that's what is important. Like, a young adult coming of age can see a lot of themselves in how she behaves. So that would be one thing to get it in with the modern reader. And then, of course, the emotional development and growth. I mean, everything, again, what she experiences, kids experience today. And that's important for them to see it. Plus, also, I also go into this book is different in that a lot of the action is in Muslim Hispania and the plight of any Christians living in that country, because technically at that time, depending on where you were, some of the areas were more tolerant than others, but very dangerous to live in that country as a Christian because you were literally killed for your religion. So this was, very important for the character development because she had to come to terms with that. Like, she couldn't profess her true religion for fear of her losing her life. And then we bring in, the missionary priests that are in there and so on. So you've got this religious conflict going on, and then you have, piracy and, all the normal stuff plaguing pilgrims going to Rome. So that's brought in there because there's a lot of that today where, some areas are very dangerous to travel and you have to be very careful. So it shows you that the world, even though this is written a long time ago, and in a time frame back then, nothing really much has changed, and you still have the deployed military back then, like you do here. The difference back then was, I mean, it would take years maybe to find out what happened to your soldier, or you may never know at all. I mean, if somebody is deployed and say the whole unit is wiped out, there's nobody to bring back the information that all was lost. So you got to take, how did that affect the people growing up? What was their, thinking? What was the stress level? All this is very important. And I shed light on all of that in all my stories, basically, on the plight of the warrior.
You know what? When I don't know if you caught this one, but a few weeks ago, I had my friend Michael Noonan on the show,
Hmm.
and we were talking about this Christian pastor who's
Okay.
in prison in Iran. His name is Saeed
Right.
Abedini.
Right.
And I thought about the storyline that you had with Concordia at that time too, because you touched on it. It's the same thing. And the thing about Concordia is that story, maybe it was set in 900
Eight nine.
AD.
Yeah, 898.
Yeah, okay, well, right in there somewhere, My
Okay.
mathematics is about as good as my
That's
reading.
fine. That's fine.
But anyhow, those stories translate today is just the same. As much as things have changed,
Hmm.
a lot of them haven't.
That's right.
And it was a good story, and it was a very difficult topic. There's no question about that. Now, availability of Concordia, is this still in its first printing, or is it in
Yes,
its
it's still,
second?
no, it's available on, it's in currently at Barnes and Noble, Amazon, all online bookstores, print and electronic versions.
And we'll have links to the at least the paperback version of the
Right.
Amazon. Well, probably what we'll do, because there's 5 books here, is we'll just
But
leave your Amazon main page.
my you can leave my Amazon author page, or you can leave my web page because there's links. If they go to my novels tab and just click on the link, it brings you. You can purchase right on from. It'll bring you right to Amazon.
And there you
Or
go. And that's what we'll do then. See,
yeah,
that one-stop shop is important.
that's right. That's right. One-stop shopping. You just go right to my webpage, go to the tab, and you can buy you can buy all of my books. And then also can I interject my short stories too? Because
Hey, you know what? It's your dime. You can do whatever you wish.
Okay. Again, on the short stories tab, it shows a little bit because I'm included in anthologies, the Independent Author Index compilation, and I do have a few more that have been accepted for publication, and those should be out this year. So people could look for updates, and all those are contemporary stories. And like one of the titles, Murder in the First, and I have Escape from Berlin is coming soon. That's my ultimate favorite spy story. It's a short story that will be included in Independent Author Index compilation. And you'll love. I just love my spies, especially James Bond. So, but this is a down to earth, nitty gritty spy. My character. So I'll give you a heads up when that's finally out there. But that information is also there. So again, and clicking on the picture get you to the page with a little background information, and then you just click on the link to purchase the book.
What do you think is the biggest challenge to writing short stories? Because I've had authors that have come on this program and on my sports show who've done short stories, and they're very good. They're very difficult. What do you find the greatest challenge?
Getting it's very hard. If you put it in an anthology, a lot of the anthologies really don't sell that well, and depending on like the topic, some of them sell better than others. But it's a hard sell. You're better off trying to publish a short story individually. But I'm my next project, what I'm considering, is doing an anthology, but I haven't really done enough research yet to see if it's more viable to publish each of the stories I plan to do separately or not. I'm going to delve into that further. I've never really heard how successful anthologies are versus posting it one at a time, publishing it to see. Again, I'm not thoroughly researched on that because that's been on a back burner for me. So I could technically, do them initially one at a time and then combine them into an anthology and re-release it that way. But short stories are very good. Hollywood does pick them up because if you notice some of the credits, it'll say based on a short story by. And one day that's going to be based on a short story by Mary Ann Bernal because I have a lot of good short stories in my head, and we just have to keep plugging away until I get the right fit.
Well, we wish you luck with that. Now, where did you come up with the overall idea for the Briton and the Dane?
Oh, okay. I fell in love with the time period after I was a very impressionable kid, and Hollywood was really gung-ho back then in those days. And we had those big blockbusters, Kirk Douglas and the Vikings and Knights of the Round Table, King Arthur and all this other stuff. And I'm a young little impressionable kid, and I had to write my Eric the Viking novel. And Eric's been in my head for like over 20 years. And, I had to wait until life happened and finished happening, that I got some spare time, that I was able to sit down and start to write the story. But then, as I told you, it started out as Gwyneth and Eric. And then the next thing I know, all these other characters are demanding more time. And it just became this big involved, saga, which is, of blockbuster proportion. And that's what I'm trying to do, is I want to try and get the story on the big screen because it belongs there.
Okay, that sounds really good to me. Now, how did you know it was going to be a series, though? How did you actually know? It's not about the voices inside your head. How did you know?
No, it was just going to be one book. And that was the funny part. One book, and then the next thing I know, oh my God, now I got Sertic in here, and I got Joris coming in there, and then there's Helga, and all these people are coming and saying, no, you got to tell my story too, and that's the whole thing just blossomed into this big, saga. When you see the blockbusters, the cast of thousands. Well, that's my story. It became a cast of thousands, and I just went with it. I mean, the words just kept flowing down on the page, and I at times I couldn't write fast enough to get everything out there because I had all these people demanding to do this and that, and that's what I ended up doing. So my one little story, my one goal in life was to write my book, and I've succeeded and surpassed that goal because I've already written five, and plus my short stories.
That sounds pretty good. Now, do you have a producer for this film? Because you talked about a film.
No, what I've done, this was very exciting. I was introduced to a screenwriter, Colin Stewart, and he's an award-winning film and theater director, an award-winning film producer and screenwriter, and he recently completed the screenplay. We are now in the process of looking for producers, investors, financiers, because this is a real blockbuster type story. And the script, Colin was very good, and he did say very close to the storyline. So the story is there, and again, it's because of the enormous. It's the geographic locations are big because we're in Denmark, we're in England, and there's also, Rome is referenced. So, and we're in, like I said, in the 9th century. So you've got, major location shots that need to be done. And then, of course, there's the costuming and all this. So this is a multi-big budget production. So where it's I'm out there trying to find the right fit to get this thing produced, and I've been sending out query letters and the Z cards to people that are involved in the genre. And again, as in all things, it's just a matter of time before somebody is interested in doing this. If you look at the History Channel's Vikings, I mean, it is done. This project can be done because History Channel did do it, and the Vikings series is very successful. And my storyline, I'm different than with the Vikings because that part was taken with when they first invaded Lindenthorn way back. That's a couple hundred years before my storyline. So my storyline, it's a different ball game, but you still have the drama, you still have the treachery, deception, and war, conquest, and everything. So, and then there's the emotional involvement with all the characters. So, like if you think of Tristan and Isolde with James Franco and Sophia Miles, in that situation where you have the interaction of the characters, well, I picture them in my storyline, too, where you have this interaction. So there's enough material and everything, and the interest is there. So it's just a matter of trying to find the right person to get this thing produced.
Okay, when you say the interest, is it the interest in your specific script, or is it just the
No,
topic at large?
the topic at large. There is an interest for it. So, the script, should get looked at because it falls within the time frame of, stuff that people are interested in, looking at, like on TV, because or even, all right, looking in the movies, you have Thor is out there, and then I don't know if you saw Valhalla Rising or Pathfinder, Outlander, and then there was Beowulf, and then I found out recently that the Sci-Fi Channel is trying to come up with a series for Beowulf on TV. So again, the topic is a good one. It's not like it's something far out in outer space, because some people say, oh, historical fiction, and they run away from it. But historical fiction has a little niche. It might be small right now, but it's there. So I'm trying to get, trying to find the right people to, see my script, read it, and get this thing on the big screen.
Yeah, that sounds great. Now, has there been any type of reaction from Hollywood or from?
My script currently is being viewed by two producers but I haven't heard back anything yet. But I was told that the normal procedure is you don't hear back right away. So, but in the meantime, you keep plugging away, and you keep looking.
And where do you look exactly?
Uh,
Where is it that Mary Ann Bernal hunts for her producer?
I hunt for my producers. There's a book out there that lists all the producers in Hollywood studios with their mailing address and email addresses, and of course the general phone numbers. And the research is what you need to do is go on the IMDb database, which is that's the one that you see where all movies are listed and TV shows and so on. And if you have to hunt for who the producers are. So if you look up a particular movie and then you check who the producers are, and then you write down which ones that, they'll list the executive producers, co-producers, and so on. And you get the information there. And what I've been doing is I've been trying to contact producers that have already made films in this genre, so they're aware of budgets and what's required and so on. And we just keep plugging away, just like regular authors, send their manuscripts to the publishing houses and wait for them to get back to them. So it's a long process, and it's tedious and time consuming, but it's a labor of love, and we keep on plugging along because one day we'll make it.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope that happens for you. Now, how can people get involved? Because you still are looking for financing as well, right?
Correct, correct. So what they can do is, if they can just like write, like, okay, like if they go for the major cable companies like Showtime, Stars, and so on, write their executive producers, attach a link from my webpage, maryannbernal.com, and tell them that they've read the trilogy and they think that this would be a great story to get on the big screen. And the more people that write with that information, somebody's going to sit up and say, hey, we've gotten X amount of people telling us about this book. Let's go read this book, and let's contact this author and see what's happening. And that's how it goes, because it just takes the one right person for your stuff to go viral and get it into the right hands. And that's that's what everybody's trying to do. And you plug away on it and you will succeed, because you can never give up, never surrender. Do you remember who said that?
I don't know. Who did?
Galaxy Quest, Commander Taggart, remember? Never
I,
give up, never
I
surrender.
never read Galaxy Quest.
No, no, it's in TV.
Oh, I live in Greece, so I don't see those shows.
No, it was a movie. My,
I have never seen that.
okay, it was a spoof on Star Trek.
Ah, right. Okay. Well, I remember Star Trek, the TV series.
Yes, I love Star Trek, in case you didn't notice.
I noticed, but we get to watch the Real Housewives series.
Oh, geez.
I love it. It gives me
See?
something to talk about on my sports show when if a guest doesn't show up. I
Okay,
just crack on them for 15 minutes.
okay.
Anyhow, today was terrific. Thank you so much for being on the show with me.
Oh, well, thank you very much for having me, and I wish you the best with the show. And thank you again for, being there for our armed forces. We really appreciate it,
Well,
and thank you for supporting them.
I appreciate that, and I say the same thing to you. Thank you as well.
Thank you.
That was Mary Ann Bernal, and you can find her at Mary Ann Bernal. That's BERNAL.com. And that's going to wrap it up for today's edition of the Writer's Showcase podcast. Again, if you'd like to be a guest on the show, come over to thewritershow.wordpress.com. You can find me in the contact page. Thanks for listening, and enjoy the reading.